Hello, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to the first installment of an attempted challenge run for Monster Hunter Wilds. So, to clarify before I actually get into what the rules are for this, I'm not trying to make something like a Dark Souls no hit, no armor type of challenge run. What I'm really looking for is something just to add a little bit more difficulty into the initial portion of the game. Main reason being, if you're a veteran to the series, it's really not that difficult to start off with. I genuinely believe a lot of that lack of difficulty boils down to, one, being really used to this series at this point, and two, the fact that it's just a high rank game. So that means most of the game takes place in low rank, and then there's a few things that pop up in high rank. But typically, whenever you're starting out fresh with a new Monster Hunter that caps off at high rank, it takes a couple patches before you really start getting anything difficult. We have the first update actually popping up this week, and we should start seeing a little bit more difficulty being drip fed into it. So we'll find out by Friday. I know the 3rd is when the title update is actually supposed to go live, which is also when the events are going to go live for this week. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, I'm going to start off with a challenge run, and we'll sort of keep it going in parallel to the main series on the channel, which is basically testing out the stuff that the game actually has to offer through a normal character. So what are the rules? Let me put them up while we talk about them. Alright, so first rule, base armor only. By the way, the background is sped up because I'm only going to slow down whenever it's fighting monsters. So, back to the rules anyway. Base armor only. In other words, the only skills that I'm going to get are skills that are on the basic piece of gear as it comes. I figure it's fair enough to work in some low-level skills, but limiting it to just the stuff that by default comes on the armor should actually make it at least a little bit more challenging. Though I might, at some point, amend it to exclude sets. So, like, I can't have enough pieces from one particular monster to actually use their overarching set bonuses, because that seems akin to gymming in stuff. So we might throw that in the mix if it seems like one particular set is overpowered. The idea being we can add in rules as we need to turn up the difficulty a little bit, but we're going to try to avoid taking rules out. So can only use items off the secret except while traveling. In other words, during monster fights, I can't call him and use him as an easy way to run around and sharpen. I can't use him as an easy way to heal or get out of jail free by having him come pick me up off the ground. I didn't really use him all that much in fights during my main playthrough, so I'm not really that worried about that actually adding that much difficulty. I just figured I would expressly say it. That way I can't be tempted to do it just to save me from, say, losing out on a particular weapon. Now, just to expand a little bit about the except while traveling part, the maps are big in this game. The monsters travel quite a bit of distance. So I'm going to use the sacred for traveling. It would be a waste of time for the most part to just run around on foot. It would just stretch videos out pointlessly. So there'd be a whole lot of sections where I clip it and speed it up. And just to save myself from that, I'm going to allow myself to ride it. And I'm also going to allow myself to sharpen and heal up whenever the monster moves areas. The key is I can't do it during battle. So as long as I finish up, or start while I'm moving between areas, and as soon as I finish, whenever I catch up to the monster and hop off, then we're good to go. But otherwise, I have to be on the ground to use items, to sharpen, to do any of that stuff. Considering throwing in a rule later on, like if we find that it's still just a touch easy, one potential rule we could add in is have to stand still while I do all that stuff. So other than rolling to bail out of a potion or a sharpen, maybe eventually adding in the idea that I have to stand still like the old school games. Not quite got there yet. Like I said, not trying to make this the hardest run imaginable, I'm just trying to tone up the difficulty a little bit. Must rotate weapons on cart. So this is where I think the game will actually be pretty fun. Anytime I cart, be it because I was being stupid or for whatever reason, I have to rotate to the next weapon. And when I say the next weapon, if we look at the weapons list, from left to right, top to bottom, with, and as I'll mention later, except the gun lance. So I have to rotate to the next weapon, and I eventually get to where I'm putting both my first and second slot as the same weapon category, because there's a point where I'm doing something. I think it's whenever I'm clearing up the optional quest in this video. I accidentally switch weapons and almost fire using the thing that I had as a secondary, which I didn't realize I even had. And hop back on the secret real quick and switch back to the main weapon that I'm supposed to be using. So at a certain point, I get to where we'll actually keep both the first and second slot the same weapon. So if I cart, I'll rotate to the next weapon. So for example, whenever I cart with Greatsword, because look, I'm not very careful, I will eventually cart. The game may not be super difficult, but I'm going to cart. The next weapon in line will be Longsword. Just to throw in a small tangent here, because I'm fighting Chotacabra in the background. I'm not really commenting on this fight because I do it a lot whenever I'm making my mediocre weapon tutorial videos. This specific fight, because I'd fight a 1-star, or not necessarily 1-star, but the lowest ranked Chotacabra I can get as part of the joke. So I've commented on fighting him with the Greatsword before, and he's always easy. There's no hard Chotacabra. Just say that up front. Doesn't matter whether I'm using a weapon that I'm good with or not. Speaking of good or bad with weapons, the no gun lance rule. Gun lance is what I did my primary playthrough with. So I've got a metric ton of experience with it at this point. I think I'm closing in on 100 hours played on my main profile. I can't remember exactly how many so far. So, no gun lance. It just seems like it would make it a little bit more challenging having to use weapons that I'm not very familiar with within this game. Now, historically, I actually have some experience in previous games with lance, longsword, dual blades, sword and shield, and charge blade, quite a bit of experience with, and a little bit with insect glaive. So those weapons I won't be going in on completely blind, though most of them I haven't actually played a significant amount of time with them in recent entries, so how they've changed, not super familiar with. But some of them will still be pretty blind, but something like, say, Greatsword here, I played around with it enough to learn how to do the true charge combo in previous games, so I'm not really going in blind with it. But there's plenty of weapons that I have almost no experience with, including pretty much all the ranged weapons. My experience with bow is basically limited to the tutorial that I did, which, yet again, the tutorials are a joke, and some play that I did with it, 3U, or was it 4? I can't remember exactly which one it was, but one of those two games I played around with it for a little bit, and then went back to my melee weapons. So I've always mained melee, and I've never really put a significant amount of time into ranged weapons. This playthrough hopefully will change that, although it'll take a little bit to get to them. Speaking of that, one thing that might be an interesting way to alter this, and you can comment down below what you think, I can either do the linear rotate through, or I can make a randomizer wheel, and other than the weapon that I'm currently using, or any of the ones that have been grayed out, I could just roll to pick it at random. So you can let me know down below what you think. Right now, I'm going through just in order, because I would imagine I'll cart enough to actually hit everything at some point. And if I get to the very last weapon, which I think on the list is bow, and then cart, then it would just rotate back to Greatsword. The final two rules are just kind of cleaning things up a little bit. So, no decorations or pendants. I need to correct that spelling. I've got a spelling error on that as I'm recording. Probably won't be there by the time you see this, but no decorations nor pendants. They usually have either enough points to make something really good, or barely enough points to really even be worthwhile. So I'm just not going to use them, period. That sort of goes in with the spirit of using just the base armor. And no upgrading Palico. I might at some point keep the Palico from deploying, but I'm starting out with him coming along just because I like having my cat companion with me. I'm not going to use the SOS characters. That makes things just a bit too easy. But the Palico, I would assume one way to keep him from getting too strong, but to still have the utility of like the hills and Looterang and all that stuff, would be just straight up not upgrading his gear. So his starting gear is his only gear. The only little exception to this would be maybe can find some very basic weapons that let me select between cutting and blunt. That way, if I want him to have a chance to sever tails, then he can. But it can't go past what the most basic ones are, so, and low rank as well. So he'll never get his own high rank set of armor. That's the rule. If you have any suggestions or things that you think should be thrown in that, yet again, not necessarily make the game super difficult, but might make it more of an interesting challenge, just let me know. Not really going for anything super, super hardcore. Right here, I was just seeing it until I could get the sneak attack. Turns out you can do a whole lot of walking around before that sneak attack pops up. And that was good enough to finish him off. The most difficult, absolute hardest monster in the game, already beaten. Super Chotacabra. So, the way these videos will typically work is I'm going to try to narrate a few things, mostly the fights. A lot of the stuff going on between the fights will be put up to 300% speed, just to keep you from waiting around forever while I'm running around doing maintenance things. I'm going to skip as many cinematics as humanly possible and skip through as much dialogue as possible. But you'll see there's still a whole lot of, for the purposes of this video, junk. So I'll pick back up with you guys whenever we get back to a point where there's something interesting to comment on.
I'm Sai. My sister and I from nearby village. My name's Nana. It's wonderful to meet. How did you end up in that situation, Mother? Oh, okay. It's not enough. How dare you talk about? Where should we go first? Welcome back on the journey.
Okay, so back already. Let's explain how things are going to work at the smithy. When I'm talking about not purchasing the max tier weapon, what I mean is, if we look at the tree here, say this first row, there's 3 great swords, which I'm scrolling down past that already, but 3 great swords in the first row. I can make the first and the second one, but I cannot make the third one. I cannot make whatever weapon is the last one in line. So as the tree expands, it'll increase my options, but it limits me from having whatever the maximum upgrade is available at that time. I think that will actually be where a lot of the difficulty for this will come in. And we start to see that here in a minute whenever I go through to clean up some of the optional quests. Every so many main story quests, I go in and clear out all the optional ones that I can find. So when I go back in and do the optional quest for Chotacabra, it takes substantially longer than it takes me with an in-game weapon. Like, in-game weapon, I'm killing him a minute-ish. But with what I'm limited to here, it actually takes a decent little bit of time to kill him, even if it's a really simple fight. Anyway, I'll pick back up with y'all in just a minute. Oh, one last thing. Meals are not forbidden. They're just an easy way to cap off stats. And some of the stats that they give you, they're kind of useful for getting extra cards and whatnot, but it just saves me items. I'm not too worried about it. At some point, if it seems like they're making things easy as well, we'll just drop them as well. Remember, we can trim stuff out. We just can't take rules away once we've added them.
Hello, but I'm safe. There, no. I heard that's all right. Yes, and you make it quick, monster. They're clever too. I'm doing sense. I don't know what people do without them. I want to become a secret fighter too. Time to know we have a great one, Nona. It's like a surprise. Once we reach the village, you'll see. Wow, look at that. There's so many of them. Let's get closer. Tread carefully. Incredible. I've never heard of a rhino bird this big before. Some of them have big spikes on their backs. That's the male. Each one has one male and a number of females. Wouldn't want to butt heads with those things. Don't worry, they're not aggressive at all. Is that a mountain? What a weird shape. You think so? We call it wind's gas. It definitely takes my breath away. Alright, this is the spot. Great, thank you. Over here. It's not so hard. That should be enough, honey. On to the village then? Yes, please follow me. Oh no, I was supposed to draw water. I completely forgot.
You're in for it now.
Yeah, Zato's gonna get me an earful.
Is there anything we can do now?
Please, no. If anything, it's me who owes you a favor.
I'm starting to get nervous. To the villagers, we're outsiders. I don't want to do anything to offend them.
It'll be fine. Just play cool.
Do you think they have droids like me there? Good question. The guild hasn't seen evidence of any aliens in the region. I don't never know. I'll do my best not to start them.
We're here. What? Sorry, Whip.
Hello,
You got one thing.
we'll be home then. Did you see that? The guards at the gates. They were carrying weapons. Besides, I'm seeing more weapons later. Okay. Boss, these are for lunch.
Authorization.
Brandon, you got all those. That was a big beast, right?
Long Nashor's sharp claws? Yeah, I say so.
Those villagers have weapons. This doesn't have a thing, stuff still needs to be monsters out. Maybe they got some kind of thingamabobble.
Almost there.
Stupid silly humanoids. I miss this secret already. Well, here we are. I think you got it.
Good idea.
Hey there, what grade will you hunt? And since it's a 14 cube, don't get too crazy out there, yeah?
Yo, I've got some materials to do. What are we making today? Look good? Alrighty. Perfect. You can find more of this stuff. They're loaded with all kinds of knocks off you need. Anything happens in support. Hey, over here. Can I talk to you right quick? It's about the support time. An SOS flare. You don't think...
Come on. Be careful out there, Hunter.
Follow the scout flies. The timing, the direction, it must be them.
Hurry.
Move those hindquarters. The support team must be in trouble. Hold on, everyone. I'm coming to help. There you are.
All right, time for Story Fight 2. Camatrice. I really like this guy. I know I mentioned it in my original playthrough, but I like the rooster-inspired monster. Now that I think about it, I'm kind of surprised there hasn't been anything that's a more direct copy of a rooster before. But I think this dude looks really cool. It's kind of a shame that he's such a punching bag of a monster, but still, he's a smaller brute wyvern, and he also looks really cool. What else could you expect? As far as fights go, he does a little bit of damage at this point, so he's a little bit more threatening than he was before whenever I was upgrading gear and picking out, you know, the best weapon upgrade I could get. But he's still not really that much of a threat yet. So I'll jump on ahead. The storyline fights, I'm going to typically leave them to play out on their own. But the optional quests will mostly be sped up unless they actually end up being interesting. Alright, see you again here in a little bit.
On my way there.
Don't mind if I do.
this trap. My lives are flashing before me here. Here we go! That's what you get for messing with my partner. And with me.
Great work, Hunter. Oh, and the support team made it to base camp safely.
Great. Let's head back.
Thanks, Isai.
I'll come in handy. And great. Greetings, Hunter. Before recording the view, carry on. Thanks for saving my whisper now, that's sort of. Prepare to eat from here.
Well, what can I do for you? Have you selected your weapons? If not, you can use them.
Sounds like we're going that. I hope. Let's talk again soon.
Okay.
Ready to go? Great. My village awaits. Okay, go.
Whoa, these are harder to handle than they look. How many secrets do you have to have?
Lots of fantastic too. Training takes a lot of work. It only goes to good practice when we're back.
So then, something.
Yes, you lead.
And where did you crash while he's away? What's not going about this plan? So, how do you know where the rest of
I was on my way to Japan to meet the sister when they 50%. I didn't have to find it. They did.
You really are clever.
Green brother, maybe enter. This way, friend.
Thank you very much. Yeah, let's go. Come on, Mama, let's go. But remember what I said about music. There's going to be here soon. Hey, look, that's strange.
Hey,
It's called Wilk. You just tossed it into the fire. Huh? Did you see that? Have you had a chance to ask the elder about the
Come here, don't be shy. The children have told me much about you. Sit, but we have matters.
Hello.
I'll just like that.
It's all right. Thank you so much for your time.
Come on inside. Please come in. Nonsense. We sighted a monster with long fat before.
I suppose we'll take our leaders. Let's start heading back to base camp. So, what's next?
Let's hit the forest.
Remember. We should prepare properly before entering the area. The gentleman noticed the catch up. Right.
Alright, time to start digging into the optional quests. This first one is just to go kill a bunch of bugs. Zero challenge. These guys go down as easily as you would expect. So, let me pause for a moment until we get to a fight that actually has even the remote possibility of doing some damage. can probably tell from the methamphetamine-like pace that this guy still doesn't pose much of a threat. But this is where the restrictions on gear and whatnot is actually kind of starting to show itself. He takes forever to kill, at least forever compared to what I'm used to. Keep in mind, I'm not a speedrunner. I'm not an expert level player. I'm sure other people could do exactly what I'm doing and still clear him out in relatively minor time. If you notice, I don't really find him threatening because I'm not really healing all that much. Part of that, if I'm honest, is because I'm not really liking this whole pause and charge style that comes with the greatsword. So I'm getting a little bit bored with the weapon, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that I wasn't tempted to just let the card happen so I could swap weapons. What I probably need is some sort of rule that lets me intentionally swap to the next weapon after so many successful fights. That way it kind of keeps things interesting. Or maybe a mandatory rule that after every X number of successful hunts, I have to swap, but feints make me swap instantly. I don't know. You guys can let me know in the bottom. Maybe successful hunts rotate me to the next weapon, but it doesn't black the previous one out, so it's still available for later use. Whereas failed hunts automatically rotate me to the next one, and it marks that one out until I've went through every other weapon. I don't know. Let me know what you think.
This is a real research opportunity. Can't let it go to waste. Right. What kind of monster are we after this time? Let's have another couple of notes today. Maybe she's let's go to the one of these. Please don't stop me. Iron target. This is a rare research opportunity. Can't let it go to waste. Leave it to me. Heal sit down. Hey, what are we making today? I'm ready to work. All right. Perfect. I'm ready to work. All right. Yo. Bitchy twitchy.
I know it probably seems like there's a whole lot of junk menuing I'm leaving in here, but part of the idea within the first video, at least, is to prove that I'm not just going out and doing stuff off screen or off edit. if there's enough feedback saying cut out a lot of the filler time, I'd be happy to do that. I just figured since this is being listed as a challenge run, it's only fair if I give as much footage as humanly possible. With about the only time where I skip anything is when I've stopped playing for a session and started playing on another session, and I was in a slightly different spot when I finished versus when I started. So, sometimes that happens. It's not so much that I've actually went and done anything as it is that I moved about 10 feet before I realized I needed to turn the recording stuff on. But if you think it would be better just to straight up edit out a lot of the movement between places and go straight to the fights, let me know. I'll do that. Be happy to. It's really not that hard. It's also not that hard to just not record all the, I guess, storyline bits. It's not really filler. The story's actually pretty good. And it's enjoyable your first time through, but there's no real point in getting all that focused in on it in something like this, other than just to prove that I'm not cheating. I could also try to speed it up quite a bit more, but I found 300% makes it pretty quick, but still lets you track what's going on. Start getting too much faster than this, and it can be kind of hard to track how everything is actually happening. But let me know what you think.
So how'd you visit that village? How many specimen balls do you think I should bring? Oh, there you are. Are you ready to leave? Let's go on, but shall we depart? We'll follow this river. Why do you think the water is red? There are a few plausible explanations. It could be an excess of certain types of plankton. The word contains red matter could cause scorching, although when explaining red displays. Though in region, it could slightly report a monster that causes sea appear red. The water was completely safe to drink. You might take this. Not much use in stopping. Anyone else have some? Some creature floating on. Yeah, maybe that's not bad. Really? Can we get a specimen? After we set up again. Don't think they're hostile, but there's no reason to feel caution to win. The water is all clear. You're right, it's not red at all. Makes me wonder where it's coming from. I know, why don't we follow the water back to its source? After we set up again. Don't wander off too far now. I still can't believe the size of this forest. All those things are fascinating discovery. It feels so vibrant and alive. I know. Where do you begin? So many things to study and collect. I'm not ready to grab over the trees like a madman. That's settled. I decided to live here. All right. Enough joking around. Focus on the task at hand. This is the place? Good. Let's set up. Okay, let the travel investigation begin. We should look for any tracks. Hey, look at that. Another fur. This appears to be a however, first that would suggest. Let's keep looking. What's this? I don't think it's from the shotgun. There's a bunch of coarse fur here. Let's stick together. I'm sure we'll find something here. Let's stick together. I'm sure we'll find something here. Let's stick together. I'm sure we'll find something here. Let's stick together. I'm sure we'll find something here. Let's stick together. I'm sure we'll find something here. I found something else. It's leading gashes. Our staff flies seem to be reacting to something deeper in.
Alright, Lalabarina time. This, to me, is one of the cooler new monsters in the game. It's just a bit disappointing that she's so incredibly easy. And the only thing that really makes her hard here with the greatsword is the fact that she hops around all over the place. So it's really hard to lock her down and get a good hit in. But she's not actually challenging in and of herself. Like, she's so slow between attacks, there's no real point where you're worried about her comboing you to death. She doesn't have any real big combinations like Nursilla does, where it's paralyze and then hit you with those giant pincer attacks. Yeah, she can paralyze you, and she can hit you with her stinger, but it seems like anytime she gets a big hit in, she then just kind of wanders away for a moment instead of keeping the pressure up. But I don't know. I like the monster. I think it looks really cool. Sounds that it makes. I actually like the fact that when you hit the legs enough, she falls over pretty regularly. Like, it's not that hard to get trips on her. Granted, that makes her a little bit easier, but it falls in line. And the rose form right here. The rose is gorgeous. It's one of the coolest transformations that a monster has in the game. I don't know. There's a lot of potential with this one that just isn't being lived up to yet. And I honestly don't think even a like hardcore, like if for some reason, instead of just sticking with the Apex monsters, if they decided to release an arc-tempered Lalabarina, unless they really ramp her stats up, she's just not going to be hard. the opportunity to make her a challenge would be with a subspecies. Now, will they have a subspecies over in this game? I doubt it. She's clearly meant to be the kind of intro monster to the flooded forest area, which I can't actually properly remember what the forest name is for this place, but flooded forest is what I think of whenever I think of this area. I don't see them having a subspecies of her in this game. I think they would have probably already popped that out. But in the expansion, you never know. It'd be interesting if they pop her up in a different area and she has a different flower that she's imitating. Although there's not really any roses like that in this forest area. So, I don't know. I thought she was a cool fight. A lot of potential. Disappointed with how easy she was. So, maybe this particular playthrough I can find a way to make her challenging again. But at least on this particular attempt, not so much. See about later in the game though.
Don't get dragged into their fight!
What I'm doing right here, well at least here in just a second, you'll see me run over to the smithy periodically, and I actually end up forging a lot of weapons, even for the ones that I'm not using. And what it is, I'm anticipating that first cart. I know it's going to happen. Like, if nothing else, I just don't tend to focus well enough to have a full run through the game with 0 carts. I get bored, my mind starts to wander, or I'm just, I don't know, not really putting as much effort in as I probably should. Anyway, what I'm getting at is I'm going to fuck up and die at some point. And in order to meet the spirit of this challenge, I decided it would be a good idea to have at least a couple of every few weapons ahead of the one that I'm currently using made. Now, will that leave me using the optimal weapon for the particular monster or whatever that I'm fighting? No. But it'll still be better than, say, dying with longsword and having 0 swords and shields that I can use other than the absolute beginner one. Because I haven't actually addressed going out and farming mats yet, and I'm not quite sure how to do that. Like, should I restrict it to making things for whatever I have on me, or... I don't know. For now, I guess farming is probably okay. Maybe restrict it to I have to farm on a hunt. So if I'm going to go out and farm, I have to actually pick a hunt or start an investigation or something, so that every time I go out, I have to kill something. Even if I'm running around to pick up ore, then it forces me to fight a big monster. There we go. Hold on just a second. There we go. New rule. Can only farm during an active hunt. So you'll probably see that violated a little bit in this video because I didn't come up with it until just now. But going forward, that's what we'll do. Only farming during active hunts or when, for whatever other reason, the game forces you out into the open area. So, let's say I can grab stuff on from the back of the secret while it's got me on rails, because otherwise some of these sections get really boring, just waiting until it finally lets you go to do stuff again. Anyway, I'll see you again here in a minute when we go to fight Congalala, because that's the next one.
You're foraging for mushrooms. Oh, yeah. Okay. That structure is ancient. I wonder how long ago it was built. Oh, this is beautiful. Up, climb up. You come too. You come too. I guess we're going here. Aha, bravo. I'm going to take this. Circle. Okay, let's go. They have a very colorful vocabulary. Seriously, what's a tribute? I wish you had tributes. I'll paint it for us. Do you hear that?
Something sorry. Let's find this again.
Yep, Congalala. So, an old friend of mine. I don't really mind fighting Congalala all that much. It's not really that threatening. But we're starting to take decent damage from the hits at this point. Not terrible damage just yet, but we're starting to take some damage. Then you have something like Congalala that puts stink on you, which, foreshadowing, I tend to forget exists, and forget that while it's on me, I can't actually use any items. So, not going to worry too much about Congalala for this go-round, and see my Palico there just bailed me out of the stink status. And I do tend to forget that with the charge, you can back yourself up into the range of the little shit breath thing that he does there. I don't know. This is an entertaining monster. Looks cool, kind of funny, but it's never really been one of my favorites. To be honest, the only primate style monster that I actually like is a Jarakan, and that one's brand new. Like, I despise Rajang. If they drop Rajang into this game, odds are pretty good. I'm just going to skip him entirely. I mean, I'll do a video on him, get the kills for that, but the armor, even if it's meta, I'm just not going to get it. I hate him. I hate the fight. He's annoying as hell. So, I guess for this particular type of video, that would actually make for a good fight. Okay, so I guess if they do add in Rajang, I'm going to end up fighting him. So I take back all the shit I just talked. Anyway, see you here in a minute when we start working on the optional quests.
It's moving to a new area. You can carve materials off of small monsters as well. Ah! I made eye contact with it.
all about your great
Can we have our puny hovel back now?
but here's too many lopsided.
What?
Too.
I suppose we'll be going then. So, the Doshakamum can... Yeah,
Oh, never mind.
I don't suppose it would hurt...
Hunter, got it. Hey, come here. Yep. And you can catch your eye. And you can catch your eye. Ready to get to work? Alrighty. Perfect. Ready to get to work? Alright. Perfect. Ready to get to work? Alrighty. Perfect. Yeah. Now that's a good choice. Ready to head out? Okay, let's look out. Let's have another cooking surprise today. On the way there. What do you think? Got something in mind? Oh, look good. Alright. Look good. Alright. What are we making today? Yeah. Look good. Alright. Look good. Alright. Come back anytime. I got some materials too. Check the field. On the way there.
All right. So, this is actually a good example of the slow progression of difficulty in this game. We're at what I believe is the last optional quest that I planned on doing for this area before moving on with the next story quest. And it's Kongalala again. Kongalala, not very threatening. But this is a good example of her starting to slowly get to where she hits harder and harder. So just figured I'd throw it in at a normal pace. That way you could compare it between here and the first time we fought her and see some of the differences in how strong the attacks are.
Let's cleanse that status.
All right, remember that thing I said earlier about me ignoring the stink status and how I was getting a little bit arrogant with Chotacabra earlier and not healing up when I needed to? Well, this is a point where that comes back to bite me in the ass. Because right up here, we have a pretty embarrassing cart. Now, throw it in the lower right hand corner, a cart count. show how many carts we've had in that particular video. I'm not going to keep it running through the whole thing, or I guess I could make it continuous. Although what I'll probably do is do the count for the video, then at the end of the videos I'll show the totals across all the videos. And we'll have a list of exhausted weapons until we get to the point where everything's been renewed. So, cart count's 1. Now we're in the process of switching everything back to, or over to longsword. So I'm grabbing that one and then just throwing a lower rank secondary one into the secondary slot. That way I can't accidentally use something other than longsword. And then we'll go back to the fight with Kongalala. One thing becomes obvious very, very fast with the Kongalala fight with me and the longsword. And that's that I have not practiced with this at all. Now granted, there's 3 monsters right here, and yet again, instead of making life easy on myself and actually using the appropriate items to get them to just go away and do their own thing, I've decided just to ignore it and fight like normal. Now, what you're probably seeing is me using just semi-random moves and relatively suboptimal attacks for the time. That's because I really don't have any idea what I'm doing at this moment. I haven't watched any tutorials on longsword. I actually haven't watched any of the weapon tutorials, period. Well, except for Gunlance. I watched some stuff on Gunlance because I planned on playing Gunlance, and I didn't realize how much I was going to dive into actually making Monster Hunter Wilds videos at the time. So I did a little prep work for it. But I haven't really done any prep work for anything else. So I'm going to kind of keep it that way. That way, number one, while I'm doing the mediocre weapon guides, it really is mediocre. Like, if I accidentally do the meta combo, cool. Otherwise, they're just for jokes. But at this point, with this dude, I'm just kind of winging it. I'm going based off of what I used to do in the older games, which is get as many spirit combos in as possible, and try to build up to a helm breaker. And what you see is I kind of blindly stumble across a few of the newer moves. Still not really certain what the most optimal combo would be here, but I can appreciate the fact that a wound bust raises your spirit gauge. That is really cool, and that's quite a handy thing to have. It takes me forever, like not during this fight, to figure out how to do the special sheath and the EI slash thing, whatever it is, which are really fun to do and give some really cool anime-like moments when you manage to pull them off, but without some sort of reminder on the controls, it's more or less just feeling my way through it. And yeah, there's the tutorial buttons in the upper right. Every now and then I do kind of peek up at that, but when you're in the middle of a fight, you're not going to stop and just read through what the tutorial says. I'm actually looking at them more now than I have any other time I've been fighting. So I'm starting to see some stuff that I missed out. Hey, that'd be interesting. Going through and actually recording the videos ends out giving me a chance to study the weapon and figure out what I need to be doing. Well, anyway, I'll pick back up with you in just a minute.
Look at all our ingredients. We should whip out the barbecue grill.
Yeah, there wasn't really a hell of a lot left in that fight. I just didn't have anything else to say, so I thought I'd give you a few minutes of full sound and let you hear the death in all its glory. So, that's the first kill with the longsword, but it's also the first death of the series. And I thought that would be a good place to end this video. For future reference, I'm going to try to keep the videos between 30 and 45 minutes. There's just no real point in making them too much longer. So, summary so far, we've got 1 cart, and the greatsword's on cooldown. Remember, if I can beat it, so can you. I'll see you next time.